They always said she was strange. Even before I was old enough to understand what the word meant, I knew people didn't like her. I heard the whispers behind fences, the way voices dipped into a hush when she passed by pushing that squeaky cart down the gravel drive. Old Marnie! They'd mutter like an incantation, like saying her name too loud might call something dark into the room. But I never saw what they saw. To me, she was warmth in winter and cool cloths on fevered skin. She was stale candy from a chip tin, the kind you had to suck forever before the sweetness gave way. She was bedtime stories whispered through crooked teeth, the smell of lavender and mothballs that settled into the old knit sweaters she wrapped me in when the heater gave out. I didn't know my real mother. I don't even remember her face. The social worker told me once that my parents died in a fire when I was 3. I suppose that's why I never feared Old Marnie's house. Even with its sagging porch, its dark-paneled walls and creaky boards, it was the only home I ever knew. And she, strange, reclusive, distant as the moon, was the only person who ever made me feel safe. When I was 5, I started calling her Ma. She never corrected me. Never encouraged it either. She just gave me that sad, tired smile and rubbed the top of my head with one bony hand, like petting something fragile she didn't know how to hold. The day she died, I was 19. I just started working at the lumberyard on Route 12. Long hours, hard labor, pay that made my back ache, but I was proud. Proud I could finally buy the groceries, fix the leaky sink, maybe even replace the busted heater if I saved up. I was proud because for once, it was my turn to take care of her. I found her slumped in the old rocking chair by the window. She looked like she'd just fallen asleep watching the birds, only her mouth was open a little, and there was a coldness in the room that didn't come from outside. She didn't leave a note. No will, no instructions, no family to call. The county took care of the funeral. Bare bones, no fuss. I stood alone in the rain and watched the priest say words that didn't mean anything to me. When I came back to the house, it was colder than I remembered. The heater had quit again, but it wasn't just that. There was a stillness that pressed into my bones, like the walls themselves were holding their breath. Her rocking chair sat empty, still facing the window. The dishes from the night before were still in the sink, the tea kettle still on the stove. I couldn't bring myself to clean it. I wandered the house like a ghost, touching the edges of furniture, tracing the wallpaper seams with my fingers. I found myself standing at the foot of the attic stairs. We weren't allowed up there. Ever. When I was little, I tried once. Got 3 steps up before I felt her bony hand clamp around my arm, hard enough to bruise. I'd never seen her angry like that. Her eyes wild, voice shaking when she said, "Never. You hear me? Never go up there." I didn't ask again. But now she was gone, and the house felt like it was holding something back. Like the silence was waiting for me to do something. That night I couldn't sleep. I kept hearing sounds, soft creaks, faint whispers, the kind you can almost believe are the wind. I tried to ignore them, but around 3 a.m. I saw it. Light. A faint, golden glow spilling from beneath the attic door. I should have been scared. Any sane person would have been. But I wasn't. I felt drawn. Like something was calling me. Not with words, but with memory. With warmth. With the promise of answers I didn't even know I needed. I climbed the stairs. Each step creaked under my weight, the way I remembered, but louder now, like the house was warning me. The light pulsed gently under the door, steady as a heartbeat. My hand trembled as I reached for the knob. It turned easily. The attic was dust and cobwebs and the stale air of years gone by. But in the far corner, where the rafters dipped low, the light glowed from an old oil lamp that shouldn't have worked, hadn't worked in decades. And beside it, was her. Not as she was when I found her, old and slumped, but younger. Maybe 50. Maybe 60. Her hair dark, her back straight. She was knitting calmly, like she'd never left. Like she'd just been waiting. My breath caught. "Ma!" She looked up and smiled, the same tired, crooked smile. "You finally came, Jonah." And just like that, the air shifted. The attic didn't feel cold anymore. It felt expectant. "You're not real," I whispered. Her smile didn't fade. "No. But I'm still here." I didn't understand then. Not fully. I wouldn't, not until I found the letters, the trunk, the photographs. Not until I learned what she'd done. What she'd protected me from. But that night, sitting cross-legged in the attic while the ghost of Old Marnie knitted by lamplight, I felt something I hadn't felt since she died. Safe. Even if everything I knew about her was a lie. Marnie's ghost never looked at me the way the living did. She didn't seem surprised to see me, nor afraid. Just tired. Like the weight of everything she'd held on to had followed her even after death. We sat there in the attic for what could have been hours. I didn't speak. I couldn't. I was afraid if I said the wrong thing, she might vanish. But she didn't. She just kept knitting. Her needles clicked like clock hands, steady and sharp, echoing in the stillness. Finally, she said, "It's time you knew." My mouth was dry. "Knew what?" She didn't answer. She only pointed with one translucent finger toward the far side of the attic, where the shadows thickened. A sheet draped over something square caught my eye. I hadn't noticed it before. Or maybe I had, but the room hadn't let me. I stood on shaky legs and walked over, each step kicking up little puffs of dust. The air felt different the closer I got, denser, charged, like before a summer storm. My fingers trembled as I pulled the sheet away. A trunk. Old, leather-bound, the kind you only ever see in war museums or pirate stories. It was covered in strange carvings, not just letters, but symbols. Some looked like runes. Others I didn't recognize at all. There was no lock. Just a brass latch that clicked open with a metallic sigh. Inside, a stack of old letters tied with a red ribbon, faded photographs, a child's rattle, and a worn leather journal with C. Thorne etched into the cover. That wasn't her name. I turned to look at her. "Who's C. Thorne?" She didn't stop knitting. "That's who I was. A long time ago." I didn't know where to start. The letters seemed fragile, like touching them would make them crumble. I picked up the journal instead. The pages smelled like mildew and time. The handwriting was hers, loopy and precise. I flipped to the first page. September 3rd, 1987. If they ever find this, they'll burn it. Just like they burned him. My heart slammed in my chest. I should have run sooner. I should have taken him and left that night. But I was too afraid. And now he's dead, and they'll come for the boy next. I stopped reading. Boy. Not a boy. The boy. Me. I looked back at her, the ghost that called herself Marnie, the woman I'd called Mom my whole life. "Who were you running from?" She finally set down the knitting. Her hands folded in her lap, thin and semi-transparent. "There's more in the trunk," she said. "But I can only show you so much. The rest, you'll have to find on your own." "Why?" I asked. "Because some truths can't be given," she said quietly. "They have to be earned." The light from the oil lamp flickered, casting strange shadows across the beams. I looked back at the trunk. The red ribbon around the letters was brittle, the knot delicate. I untied it and picked up the top envelope. The name on the front was written in thick black ink. "To whom it may concern." I unfolded it with shaking hands. "If you're reading this, then I'm likely dead, and the boy is old enough to ask questions. My name is Clara Thorne. I was once a sister of the 12 Flame, a keeper of the gate. You won't have heard of us. We don't exist on paper, only in blood. The boy you have, Jonah, is not my son. Not by birth. But he is mine in every way that matters. I stole him from them. From it. To keep him safe. And now you must choose, burn this letter and forget, or follow the trail and remember everything. Even the things that will break you." My vision swam. The attic tilted. A secret society. A stolen child. It. "What the hell is this?" I whispered. The ghost of the woman I called Ma looked at me with eyes full of sorrow. "It's your beginning," she said. "And their end." Below the letters, at the very bottom of the trunk, something else glinted. A key. Old iron, cold to the touch. Etched into the handle was the same symbol I'd seen carved into the side of the trunk. A flame inside a circle. A 12-pointed star surrounding it. It wasn't just a symbol. It was a map. And I had a feeling it would lead me to the truth. I didn't sleep that night. Couldn't. I lay in my childhood bed, the key wrapped in an old handkerchief on the nightstand. Every creak of the floorboards, every groan of the walls, every shift of wind against the siding, felt like it carried weight. Like the house itself was remembering. Around 4 a.m., I got up and went back to the attic. The lamp was still burning, though there was no oil in it. Marnie, or Clara, was gone. But her scent lingered, lavender and mothballs, dust and old firewood. I knelt beside the trunk again and dug deeper. There were more letters, some with dates going back as far as 1965. Some were in English. Others in languages I didn't recognize. One was written entirely in a spiraling script, coiling inward like a snake eating its tail. But none of them felt as heavy as the journal. I turned back to it and flipped ahead. October 19th, 1987. He has the mark. I checked again last night, after the fever. The scar behind his ear is faint, but it's there. Just like the others. Just like the text said. He is the vessel. They will come. I touched the back of my ear without thinking. A scar I'd had my whole life. I'd scraped my head on the porch rail as a kid, at least that's what Marnie told me. But now I wasn't so sure. I ran to the bathroom and turned on the light. Pulled back my hair. The scar was still there, pale and crescent-shaped. But now I could see the faint ridges inside the curve. Like a brand that had faded but not vanished. The symbol from the trunk. The flame and the star. I staggered back, heart hammering. What the hell had she gotten me into? What was I? By dawn, I'd made up my mind. I packed a bag with essentials, knife, flashlight, lighter, water bottle. I tucked the journal and the key into the bottom of it. I didn't know where I was going, not really. But I remembered something else from the journal. The sanctuary lies behind the stones, where fire meets root. It sounded like nonsense. Until I remembered the old graveyard behind the church. The one no one ever visited. The one with the giant oak growing out of the center of it, roots like veins crawling over broken tombstones. When I was a kid, Marnie warned me to never go near it. She said the dead there never slept. Maybe she wasn't being poetic. I left the house at first light. The morning mist clung low, thick as breath. The streets were empty. The world hadn't woken up yet. Or maybe it just didn't want to. The church had been abandoned since the late 90s. A fire gutted most of the inside. No one rebuilt. Just boarded up the windows and let the vines take it. The graveyard out back was worse than I remembered. Tombstones tilted like broken teeth. Rusted gates hung crooked. The oak tree in the center was massive, its roots thicker than my arms. And at the base of it, beneath years of leaves and dirt and rot, was stone. A flat slab. I cleared it off with my hands. The symbol was there. Carved deep. The key slid into the groove without resistance. And the ground beneath me trembled. The slab cracked down the middle. Roots slithered aside. A narrow stairway spiraled down into darkness. I should have hesitated. Should have run. Should have done anything but what I did. I went down. The air was ancient. Damp. Full of the scent of moss and ash and something else. Something burnt long ago that still hadn't gone out. I lit the flashlight and followed the stairs into a chamber carved from stone. On the walls, carvings. The same symbol again and again. Flames. Stars. Eyes with 12 lashes. People kneeling before fire. And in the center of the chamber, a stone pedestal. Upon it, a small leather-bound book with a handprint scorched into its cover. It pulsed with heat before I even touched it. A voice echoed around the chamber. Not hers. Not mine. A voice made of many voices. Whispering all at once. He has returned. The book opened on its own. Pages fluttered until they stopped on one painted with blood-red ink. Jonah Thorne. Vessel of the Flame. Key to the gate. I didn't know who I was anymore. But I knew one thing. Marnie didn't steal me from them. She saved me. I don't know how long I stood there, staring at that page. Jonah Thorne. My name. But not my name. Not anymore. Not after this. I turned the page slowly. The next was blank. Then the one after. Then one more, and there it was, scrawled in the same red ink. To light the flame is to invite the eye. To bear the eye is to see the gate. To open the gate is to let it through. My stomach turned. The voice from before was gone, but the memory of it rang in my bones like a bell. I stepped back from the book. It slammed shut the moment I moved. Dust rose from the pedestal like smoke. Then the chamber shifted. I don't know how to explain it. It was as if the walls took a breath. The carvings along the stones seemed to shimmer, glowing faintly with an ember-orange hue. The pedestal cracked down the center. The floor below me rumbled, and a narrow slit opened in the wall. Another passage. And a sound. Faint. Chanting? I hesitated. I thought of the attic. Of Marnie's ghost. Of her tired smile, and that one line from the letter. You must choose, burn this letter and forget, or follow the trail and remember everything. I was past the point of forgetting. I took the passage. The tunnel was tight, barely wide enough for my shoulders. The stone walls felt warmer the deeper I went. I started sweating. The flashlight flickered, but I kept it aimed forward. The chanting grew louder, more rhythmic. Male and female voices entwined in a language I didn't know but somehow understood. It spoke of fire. Of sacrifice. Of awakening. Finally, the tunnel opened into a vast underground chamber. Candles lined every edge of the circular room. In the center, a pit of flame roared with no fuel. Around it, 12 robed figures kneeled, chanting in unison. On the floor beneath them, symbols had been etched in chalk or salt, maybe both. They didn't look at me. Not yet. I stepped inside, drawn again by something I didn't understand. The moment my foot touched the sigils on the floor, the chanting stopped. All 12 figures turned toward me in perfect unison. Their faces were hidden behind masks, bone white, shaped like stretched human faces with mouths sewn shut. The tallest of them stood. He held a staff tipped with what looked like scorched metal, shaped into the same 12-pointed star. You are late, he said. His voice was like gravel scraped against stone. I wasn't invited, I replied. He chuckled. You were born into this. You were made for this. I felt the scar behind my ear itch. Burn. You are the key, he continued. The last of Thorne's line. The flame cannot rise without you. My fist clenched. I didn't ask for any of this. No one ever does. The others began to rise. One by one. They encircled me, humming low, resonant tones that vibrated in my chest. We have kept the gates sealed for centuries, the tall one said. But it weakens. The eye watches. And you. He reached out and touched my forehead. I saw it. Not with my eyes. With something deeper. A great eye in the void, surrounded by flame, turning slowly as if waking from a long sleep. It looked at me. Through me. And I screamed. The world fractured. I collapsed to the ground. I felt the mark behind my ear flare like a brand. My skin burned. My thoughts weren't my own anymore. They spiraled, looped, caught in symbols and echoes and names I shouldn't have known. I saw Marnie. Younger. Running. Covered in blood. Holding me. Fleeing through woods lit with fire and voices calling behind her. Bring back the key. She turned, and I saw the same look in her eyes I'd seen the day she died, grief and determination warring behind her tears. Then it was gone. I woke on the cold stone floor. Alone. The chamber empty. The fire pit extinguished. Not even ashes remained. But in my hand, clenched so tightly my nails had drawn blood, was the staff. and burned into the floor beneath me. Open the gate, Jonah. Or we will. I didn't go home. Not right away. The staff was still warm in my hand, like it remembered the fire even if the chamber did not. I wrapped it in my jacket and slung it over my shoulder, the scorched star at the top peeking out like an accusation. The daylight had shifted when I finally emerged from beneath the roots of the old oak. A blood-orange sun was sinking behind the hills, casting long shadows across the graveyard. The world looked the same. But I wasn't. Back in the house, everything felt different. The walls didn't groan. The air didn't whisper. Even the attic light had gone dark. Marnie, Clara, wasn't waiting for me. Maybe she couldn't anymore. Maybe I'd gone too far down a road she never wanted me to take. I sat at the kitchen table with the journal open in front of me, skimming the pages again. Looking for anything I missed. I thought I knew pain. Loss. But the things she wrote, they were more than warnings. They were confessions. October 25, 1987. I killed one of them today. A watcher. He followed me through the mountains, marked the child with his gaze. I used the old rites, words my mother taught me. He screamed for 3 days before his body gave in. I was 19 when they chose me. The youngest keeper in 3 generations. I thought it was an honor. I didn't know I was being groomed to be a gatekeeper, not of knowledge, but of hunger. I turned the page. Another entry years later. March 3, 1992. Jonah laughed for the first time today. Really laughed. He's starting to forget the fire, the blood. Good. Let him forget. Let him grow up believing the world is simple. I buried the others. All of them. Burned the last of the books. But something still stirs beneath the roots. It whispers to me at night. I felt the hair on my arms rise. My phone buzzed then. A text. No name. Just a number I didn't recognize. You opened it. They know now. Then another. She can't protect you anymore. I dropped the phone. My breath caught. My first instinct was to run, but where? From what? I looked at the staff, then at the trunk in the attic, then back to the journal. One more entry. Dated the day before she died. January 13th, 20XX. If he finds this, it means the flame has stirred again. It means they are awake. I kept them at bay for 16 years. I paid the price. I gave everything so he could live. But no one escapes the eye forever. Jonah, if you're reading this, I'm sorry. I wanted to tell you. Every day. But I couldn't bear to see you look at me like a monster. You are not their key. You are their end. I stared at those last 4 words. They burned hotter than any fire I'd ever seen. That night, I slept on the couch with the staff beside me. I dreamed of fire. Of people screaming. Of masks and needles and something vast stirring beneath the earth. I saw myself, older. Hollow-eyed. Standing in a circle of flame. Speaking words I didn't know yet. Words that made the sky bleed. And standing across from me, was her. Marnie. Clara. Dressed in the old robes. Her eyes full of sorrow. You have to finish it, she said. Then she stepped into the fire. I woke gasping. Covered in sweat. The staff was glowing. And the attic door was open. The attic hadn't been opened since the night I saw her ghost. But now it stood wide like a mouth waiting to swallow. The faint smell of lavender still clung to the air, but there was something underneath it, like singed paper and old blood. I gripped the staff and climbed slowly, heart hammering. Each step felt heavier than the last. At the top, the oil lamp was lit again. Still no oil in it. Still no reason it should burn. But it did. And in the corner where she'd once sat, there was a figure. Not Clara. Not her ghost. A child. He looked about 5. Same age I was when I started calling her Ma. He had dark hair and a birthmark near his jaw. One I recognized. Because it was mine. I stepped forward, but he didn't look up. Just sat cross-legged, drawing in the dust with one finger. I kneeled. Hey, buddy, I said, unsure why my voice cracked. You lost? The boy didn't answer. Just drew the same shape again and again, a flame inside a star. My mark. Their mark. When he finally looked up, his eyes weren't mine. They were hers. Clara's. But wide, glassy. Hollow. Did it hurt? He asked. What? When she pulled you through. When she took you out of the fire. I felt my throat tighten. What do you mean? He cocked his head. You don't remember, do you? I was about to speak when he vanished. Gone. Just like that. The dust he'd disturbed still held his shape, but the room was empty again. The lamp flickered. Then I saw it. A loose floorboard near the far corner. I pulled it free and found a box underneath, small, metal, and locked. But the key from the trunk slid in without resistance. Inside was a single reel of film. Old. Cracked at the edges. Labeled in red grease pencil. Thorn 1989, final right. There was no projector in the house. But I remembered the old community center across town. It had one. Probably hadn't been used in 20 years, but I didn't care. I needed to see it. I wrapped the reel in cloth and left just as the wind picked up. Clouds chased me down the road like smoke. When I reached the center, I kicked in the side door. Dust billowed. The place smelled like mold and memories. I made my way to the old A/V room in the back. The projector still worked. Miraculously. I threaded the film, sat in the dark, and hit the switch. Flicker. Crackle. Then light. Static first. Then a clearing in the woods. A circle of robed figures. The same ones I saw beneath the oak. 12, maybe more. In the center, a stone altar. Upon it, a woman, screaming, writhing, held down by hands that didn't flinch. It was Clara. Younger. Blood at her mouth. Firelight dancing across her face. And then me? A baby. In her arms. The chanting began. One of the masked figures stepped forward, a blade in his hand, glowing red. Clara screamed something in a language I didn't recognize. The flame behind her surged. She held me close. Then everything changed. The reel distorted. The image shook. Light exploded. And when it cleared, everyone was gone. Just her. Kneeling in ash, alone, clutching me to her chest. She looked up at the camera. And whispered, "Run!" The film snapped in the projector. I sat there, frozen, as the room fell silent again. That wasn't a rite. That wasn't a sacrifice. It was a rescue. She hadn't just saved me. She'd destroyed them. Or so she thought. Because the texts were right. The eye never sleeps. And now, it was turning toward me. I didn't go home after the projector went dark. Instead, I walked. Miles, maybe. Through empty roads and deeper woods. I needed air that didn't feel like it was watching me. Needed space between myself and everything I'd just seen. But there is no running from memory. Not when it lives in your skin. At dawn, I ended up in front of the library. It was still locked, but the back window was loose, had been for years. Clara used to push me through it when I was small, tell me to read what I could, and never trust the books with no dust. I broke in. In the far back, beyond the rows of cracked encyclopedias and forgotten town records, there was a locked cabinet. Not many people knew about it. But I did. Clara showed me once, though she never let me open it. She called it the cold stack. I pried it open with the staff. Inside, old microfilm reels, faded manuscripts, clippings so yellowed they looked like leaves. All marked with the same insignia, 12 points, flame at the center. The eye, staring up from every corner. I found a newspaper dated October 30th, 1989. Church fire claims 7, arson suspected. I read it twice. Then a third time. There was no mention of cults. No masked figures. No rituals. Just 7 bodies, found in the ruins of a chapel north of town. One unnamed infant. No survivors. Except I was right here. And she was gone. Another article. Dated 5 years earlier. Missing children rise to 9, investigation continues. 9 faces. Small. Innocent. All with the same crescent mark behind their ears. I knew it before I even read the fine print. They weren't missing. They were taken. They were me, almost. The door creaked behind me. I turned. An old man stood there. Tattered coat. Skin like parchment. He looked like time forgot him, but his eyes were sharp. Clear. Too clear. "You're Thorne's boy," he said. I didn't answer. "She did right by you," he went on. "Better than the rest of us." I held the staff tighter. "Who are you?" He smiled without warmth. "The last one left. Of the old circle. We tried to stop it back then. Thought fire could purify what ran in the blood." I looked at the articles in my hand. "She destroyed the right." "No," he said. "She delayed it." I felt it then, deep in my gut. A weight pressing in, like the eye was turning faster now. Like it could feel my name in the air. "There's another right," he said quietly. "Buried deep. Older than the flame. Older than even the gate." I frowned. "Older than the gate?" He nodded. "The eye doesn't open without a mirror. And someone's building one." He handed me a slip of paper. Coordinates. A name, Lyndon Quarry. I didn't ask how he knew. I just took it. He was gone before I looked up again. Outside, the wind had changed. It tasted of ash. I walked home, knowing it wouldn't be home much longer. When I opened the door, the attic lamp was off. The dust undisturbed. But something new waited on my bed. A second staff. Shorter. Sharper. And carved into its side, 12 names. Mine was the last. I didn't sleep. I packed. I stared out the window until the sky split from black to gray. Lyndon Quarry was 3 hours east. And whatever was waiting for me there, it wasn't just watching anymore. It was calling. The road to Lyndon Quarry was long, cracked, and nearly forgotten by time. Pines leaned over it like gossiping old men, whispering secrets I could almost hear if I drove slow enough. The wind had a voice out here. It said, "You're getting close." The quarry had been shut down for decades, fenced off and left to rot after a collapse took 3 workers in 91. That's what the old papers said anyway. But Clara used to say the earth remembers every scream, it just chooses who it shares them with. The moment I stepped out of the truck, I knew this place remembered me. The key, my staff, vibrated faintly in my grip. At the edge of the pit, wild grass gave way to cracked stone. The hole yawned beneath the overcast sky, wide enough to swallow buildings. Birds circled far above, but none dared cross the center. I followed the coordinates. There was a path. Not one anyone built, but one the ground gave. Footprints etched in dirt that hadn't been walked in years. As if someone, or something, was waiting. At the far end of the quarry, hidden behind an outcrop of jagged rock, was a door. Iron. Set into the cliff face. Covered in rust and symbols I'd seen before, in the cold stack, in the trunk, in the dreams. The eye. It didn't have a lock. Only a small, star-shaped indent. I pressed the base of the staff into it. It hissed. The door opened. Inside, a staircase, spiraling down into the stone. I lit my flashlight and descended. The air grew colder with each step. My breath fogged. My fingers numbed. Then heat. And light. The stairs opened into a chamber bigger than anything that should have existed beneath a quarry. Carved from stone, but smoothed by hands, thousands of them. Dozens of pillars, each wrapped in metal bands etched with names. 12 per pillar. My heart sank. I ran my hand over one. The names burned under my touch, glowing briefly. The top one read, Thorne Clara? The others below it, all people I'd never heard of. Until the last name. Thorne Jonah? My knees buckled. I turned and found the altar in the center. Not for sacrifice. for reflection. It was a mirror, shaped like the eye, rimmed with ash. Glass that didn't reflect my face, but my past. I saw the fire again. Saw Clara run. Saw her kill the other keepers. Saw what they tried to summon, writhing in the sky. Saw her bury it. In me. The voice from the chamber beneath the tree returned. All of them. Layered. Ancient. He remembers. A shape stepped from the shadows. Cloaked. Maskless. A woman. Clara. Not a ghost. Not quite. A memory. Living in the quarry's blood. Jonah, she said. You have to burn it. Before it wakes again. I don't understand, I whispered. She stepped closer. Her eyes shimmered like the mirror's surface. They used you to make a vessel. I used you to end one. My hands trembled. Then what am I? She touched my chest. A choice. Behind her, the mirror cracked. Just once. The sound echoed for miles. The crack in the mirror wasn't just sound. It was pressure. A shift in the air, in the world, like something massive had stirred from beneath the crust of reality. My ears rang. My skin buzzed. Clara's memory, whatever tether kept her here, shivered, like candlelight in wind. The seal's breaking, she said. But why now? I asked. Why not years ago? Why not when you? She looked at me, sorrow in every line of her not-quite face. Because you're old enough now. Because power grows with will. They built you to be passive. I raised you to choose. And now I have to choose what? To open the gate, or become it. The mirror cracked again. A hairline fracture raced across the glass, splitting Clara's reflection into shards. Her image flickered, fading. I reached out, but my hand passed through air. You have to go deeper, she said. There's a heart beneath the stone. A wound they never closed. Clara, wait. Burn it, Jonah. She vanished. I turned back to the room. The pillars around me glowed faintly, names pulsing like veins. One pillar shook, dust cascading from its crown. The chamber groaned. From below, I felt heat rise, not like a furnace, but like breath. There was another passage behind the mirror. A break in the stone. Narrow. I squeezed through. The space beyond was older, carved not by tools but by need. The rock walls wept moisture that hissed when it touched the glowing mark on my wrist. The scar had changed. It burned now, not with pain, but memory. Each step down the jagged corridor filled me with flashes. Hands reaching. Blood on marble. Stars that blinked like eyes. Then I saw it. A second altar. But this one was alive. It pulsed like a heart. Crimson and dark, bound by roots and ash, veins threading into the walls. Symbols carved into flesh. And atop it, a book. Bound in what looked like skin. Breathing. As I stepped close, the scar on my neck throbbed. The staff vibrated violently in my hand, then snapped, shattering into ash. I wasn't meant to use it here. I reached for the book. It opened without my touch. Inside, pages turned on their own. Symbols, bloodied, drawn in circles. A single phrase repeated again and again. The eye must feed. Behind me, I heard footsteps. 12 of them. The keepers. Or what was left of them. Their masks cracked, bone fused to skin. Hollow eyes. And in their hands embers. Each one held a piece of fire, shaped like my mark. You have come to finish it, one said. No, I replied. I came to end it. I grabbed the book. They screamed. Not in fear. In rage. I threw it onto the altar. And spoke the words I didn't know I knew. Fire erupted. Not from the altar, from me. My veins turned gold. My voice split into 12. I rose above the chamber as the eye cracked open in the stone ceiling, spilling light that wasn't light. A beam of it struck the book. The altar howled. The keepers burned. I saw them as they were, just people. Twisted by worship. Bound by fear. The eye blinked once. then closed. And everything fell silent. I collapsed. The stone cooled. The book turned to dust. The altar stopped pulsing. The scar on my neck faded to nothing. In the distance, the last crack in the mirror sealed itself. I had chosen not to open the gate, but to be the lock. I woke in darkness. Not the kind that creeps in with nightfall, but something quieter. Final. The kind of dark that waits after a storm has passed, wondering if anything will rise again. My body ached. My mouth tasted like ash. But I was alive. I stood slowly, muscles tight, bones humming like they remembered the fire. The chamber was empty. No more pulsing altars, no shadows hiding keepers. Just the stone. Still. Cold. I climbed the long path out of Linden Quarry. Step by step. No visions. No voices. Just the wind. At the top, the world was quiet. Snow had fallen while I was below. The first flakes of winter, covering everything in a soft, unearned peace. My truck was where I left it. The engine coughed once, then turned over like it was as tired as I was. I drove back to the house. To her house. The attic door was open again. The lamp extinguished. On the floor where the trunk had been, there was only a scorch mark, faint, like the echo of a memory. I found the old sweater she knitted, folded on my bed. Still smelled like her. I pulled it on. Let it hold me for a while. I thought I might cry. But I didn't. Not yet. Instead, I went outside. The sun was rising. Pale and unsure. I walked to the edge of the yard where the old tree stood, bare branches scratching at the sky. Beneath its roots, somewhere deep, was the place where she first saved me. Where she buried the last of the flame. I lit a match and dropped it into the snow. Not to burn. But to mark the moment. "I'm still here," I whispered. The wind carried it away. Inside, I found her journal again. I turned to the last page. One I hadn't seen before. Jonah. If you're reading this, it means I couldn't carry the weight to the end. But maybe that's what motherhood really is. Not protecting them from the fire, just keeping them safe long enough to face it. You were never meant to be a vessel. You were meant to be free. Live, baby. That's the only thing the I never understood. Life. I love you. Ma. This time, I cried. For her. For me. For the children who were never saved. I buried the journal beside the tree. That night, I dreamed of her again. Not in robes. Not in fire. Just Clara, sitting in her rocking chair, knitting something soft, looking out the window. She turned to me and smiled. "Good," she said. "You remembered." Then the dream faded. I woke before sunrise. Made tea. Opened the window. The world didn't feel lighter. But it was mine now. And that had to be enough.